Lucas asks, how do you mentally reset after a tough qualifying session or a DNF? I think there's two things that are really important after a tough session, whether it's a qualifying or a race or anything that doesn't go to plan in motorsport. Two things really important. The first thing is analyze what went wrong and learn from your mistakes. Okay. The second thing that's just as important is to switch off. So if I've had a bad session or something's gone wrong, I'll have a look at it. I'll look at the situation and go like, what can I learn from this to improve as a driver for the next session? And then I will go at least an hour away from the truck, completely switch off, forget about racing, focus on something completely different, like a hobby or whatever I want to do, completely switch off. And then when it's time for the next session, I'll come back, switch on, remind myself of what I'd learned from the previous session, but in a constructive way, not in a way where it's like, oh, I'm such an idiot for doing that, but in a way where it's, like I said, constructive, where I go, okay, this was the mistake I made. This is why I made it. That's fine. I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to learn from it, develop as a driver. I'm not a bad driver for a one-off mistake, but I would be a bad driver if I didn't learn from it. Josh asked, if you were coming up through grassroots racing on a budget, such as something like Hyundai Excels and sim racing, with the goal to make it into GT3 racing, what would you focus on or prioritize most to give yourself the best chance? Now, this is a really interesting question because there's quite a few things to it. So I would say there are three main things that you need to focus on. The first thing is obviously your skill set as a driver. Focus on doing things that prioritize your long-term development as a driver, as opposed to things that will just benefit you in the short term. And what I mean by that is, so if I take an example from my first year in GT3, it was a new car, and I was learning a lot in that season. Now, an example was, so it was I believe the second last round of the year at Valencia. The practice session was wet, but sort of like this, it was sort of an in-between wet, where it was not quite dry enough for slicks yet, but it was getting close. So what I asked the engineer was, I said to him, I said, look, this is a practice session. There's no point me going out there and going on wets and trying to set the fastest lap time, right? It doesn't, but like, sure, it would be nice to see my name at the top of the leaderboard, but it doesn't benefit me anything in the long term. What I want to do is I want to go out there on slicks, because there's going to be times in my racing career where I'm going to need to drive on a circuit that is too wet for slick tires, but it's not beneficial to lose all that time in the pit stop. Now, funnily enough, the very next round, championship deciding round, exactly that situation happened in the race. In the last race of the season, championship decider, exactly that happened. We started on slicks and then it rained, but we didn't want to pit before the pit window, so there was still a couple laps to go. And I ended up taking the lead of the race in that situation, because I had done things in the past that had prioritized developing my skill set as a driver, as opposed to just trying to fuel my ego and go fastest in a practice session. The second thing is build your profile. So people need to know who you are. And this leads into the other thing as well. So it's kind of two things in one, is your profile and the business side of racing. It's no secret that motorsport is obviously expensive, and you do need to bring your own funding until you're in a position where you are a professional paid racing driver. And for a lot of people, that's not possible through their own means, and so they have to source sponsorships. And sponsorships, it's a massive amount of work. But you know, I'm obviously super thankful for the incredible sponsorship network that I have. And it's one of these things where you have to work really hard on it. You have to just approach people, approach. It's a numbers game. And you also have to build your profile, because any approaches that you make to potential sponsors, one of the first things they're going to look at is your online presence. How much of a profile do you have? Does your social media look professional? Does your website look professional? These are the things that they will judge you on before they even talk to you. So I would say that is sort of a very short answer for a topic that you could probably talk about for 24 hours nonstop. But yeah, there's a lot of things to it. There's your skill set, your profile, and the business side of your racing. Sam asks, what's the biggest difference between Formula and GT cars? I'd say biggest difference is in a formula car like F3, F2, you really have to trust the downforce of the car because there's a huge amount of downforce that those cars generate. And what sets the quick drivers apart is their ability to just send it into a high-speed corner and trust that the car is going to stick. Whereas with GT cars, what sets the fast drivers apart, it's more down to, because the cars are heavier and you have less downforce, so what sets the quick drivers apart is more about your ability to be precise, very, very precise braking references, very precise on how you use the steering wheel and how you enter the corner. Everything in a GT car is about precision and like really, really refined precision. So yeah, while with a formula car, you just have to be able to trust the downforce and you know, it's that sort of bravery almost through high speed corners. A GT car is a lot about that really, really fine, very fine precision. Lucas asks, do you think drivers are becoming too reliant on data and statistics, thereby losing their natural driving instinct? I'd say no, because firstly, because I don't believe in natural driving instincts. I think everything that you do behind the wheel of a race car is learned. And at the end of the day, what sets the best drivers apart is nothing to do with natural talent or natural ability or anything like this. It's the way that they learn. It's the process that they go through to improve constantly throughout their career after every single session. And I think the more data and statistics you have, the more that the drivers have to use to learn and develop themselves as drivers, thereby increasing their skill set even further. So I think, if anything, data and statistics has actually massively pushed the level that drivers are at. Because, like I said, the best drivers are the ones who have the best learning process, and the more tools that you have to enhance that learning process, even, you know, that increases your skill set even further.